Hangouts isn't as bad as all that, really.
No, it's getting better. It's gotten a lot better. It has a little bit ways, it has a ways to go. It could definitely improve in some areas, but for what it does and for what it costs, it's fantastic. So,
Right, I'm going to be doing this sitting on the floor. How awesome is that?
awesome. Well, I hit the live broadcast button just as a public service announcement, so everybody knows.
Okay, so everybody sees me just coding away over here.
That's right. So if you want to pick your nose, you're certainly welcome to.
Code's not working. Code.
So what are you guys working on? What you Ed? You said you're coding something.
Oh, it's secret still.
Oh, still a secret. You're always working on secret stuff.
Yeah, it's secret, but where is the stupid camera? I've lost myself.
Is it a game? Is it a non-game?
It's a non-game.
Is it red? Is it?
Yeah, I'll say it in a fight. I'll wait till you're done drinking so you don't. I'm gonna expose myself to the world. No.
Yeah, okay.
Not that way though. No, it's gonna be a brain dump of me from everything I've learned in Corona, and that's all I can tell you at this point.
Wow, that sounds like a big download.
Is it an
It'll
app?
come in a series of smaller downloads.
A series of smaller downloads.
Yeah, you don't want to get that mind dump all at once. It might wreck your whole world.
So Ed, are you saying it's going to be an app?
You give people an inch and they're like, I gotta keep digging. It'll be an app.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's an app.
Is it gonna? No.
Plenty of questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. And just last question. So how long do you think that will take you to mind dump and produce an app out of it?
I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do the initial distribution, but I'm planning on getting some testers.
Yeah.
I should probably get the initial version into testers' hands in about a week. So
okay.
You guys on the panel, of course, would be ideal testers, but yeah.
Okay.
Without saying too much about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be talking a little bit more about it as I get closer. I just want to. I find if I talk too much about something in advance, it kind of ruins it for me. So.
I know it's all a secret until it's not a secret anymore, and then we can't shut you up.
Yeah. There we go.
Anybody else working on super secret stuff that they can't talk about that we can ask you a bunch of questions about?
And keep digging until you figure out what it is.
Mike, how's your Apple TV stuff going along?
The two things I've released were pretty easy, so that's been a good experience.
Were they well received?
So far, only a couple sales, but keep my fingers crossed. It's always hard to say. I'm hoping. Obviously, there's not. I mean, I know there's a decent amount in that area now, but still, compared to the regular App Store, there's not that much. So, keep thinking that. I'm hoping that they're going to promote it, but who knows? It's what they're going to do.
Do you own an Apple TV?
Yeah, I actually bought one just for this purpose, just so I could test and do it.
Ed, I know you recently bought one.
I did. I just today built my first app for one and installed it.
On device.
On device. I'm so proud of myself. It actually worked.
And Rob, I know you have one as well, and I do as well.
And I've had absolutely 0 sales on my app. But then again, I've done 0 promotions. So. And
my question was going to be, of the 4 people, I don't know, Barry might have one as well, but of the 4 people here who have an Apple TV, how many of us have installed apps so far? Like not our apps, somebody else's.
Not our apps, but other people's apps?
Yeah.
Free apps?
Yeah.
Yeah, only free apps.
I don't have it here, but there was a Halloween-themed game where you were a pumpkin and you shot these zombie birds that was stealing your pumpkin babies. And that game was a lot of fun.
Pumpkin babies? It sounds so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got it up, you can just go search for pumpkin and see what comes up. But mine was a Christmas-themed game, and I got it out after Christmas, so, it was not a good thing. But no, we've installed probably a dozen games. A majority of them were done by my 24-year-old son, who was just experimenting and playing around. There's a racing game that's on there that's pretty good. It was one that they were promoting for a while. That you can like drift your cars as you're going around turns in it, and it's a typical thing where you try to run over people and pickups and race 6 other cars to the finish line. But, that was a pretty good game. Most of the others have just been kind of meh,
Yeah, I know I've killed several hours on Crossy Road.
Yeah, we've got Crossy Road installed.
Yeah, of course. I actually the pro tip there is get yourself one of those SteelSeries controllers or any old controller that works with the Apple TV, and the Crossy Road's like super improved with a controller. I like it a lot better than using the remote that comes with the Apple TV.
Well, maybe I'll try that because I just got my controller in last week. I got the Mad Cats.
Yeah. I specifically I like it because you can independently control the direction of the character and push the button to jump. So your timing is a little better, and because you can do things simultaneously. Whereas with the control, the remote, you're sort of directing the character and clicking at the same time, and it just feels a little weird sometimes. It's not. I mean, it's okay, but it's not as fun. Hey,
Yes.
we got
I still need to get a controller for mine. I just got just the remote only right now.
Yeah, I wanted the controller because, I wanted to be able to play around with controller inputs and test things. But I also you can hook it to your iPad and things like that. So I just wanted to experiment with the whole thing, like use it on TV, use it on the iPad, use it on the phone, just sort of see if it would open up my world of gaming by having a controller.
Yeah. What I would love to know is what they think the percentage of people who get Apple TVs now go out and also buy a controller is, so we would get an idea of how hard we should, push that into our app.
I don't know if it was a forum post where I kind of went all kibitzing on. You remember where it was, Charles? Because I wrote up a whole bunch of stuff about it. But you can't go into Best Buy and buy a game controller. Apple may sell them in the Apple Store, but you don't go to the Apple Store that often. You can't walk into a big box place and pick up one. I mean, I had to get mine off Amazon. And so if your controllers aren't going to be sitting on the shelf beside the Apple TVs, people aren't going to be buying them. So I would say very few people, unless they are a developer or are heavy into making this a gaming platform, are going to go out and do it. All your millennials that are using this for cable cutting probably aren't going to go get a game controller.
Well, yeah, because they probably already have one for if they have an Xbox or something like that, right? I mean,
they're probably already playing games on there. So.
Yeah.
What about your iPhone and other devices as proxy controllers?
I haven't tried that.
Well, Apple does now have the remote out for the new Apple TVs. They finally got that working. But it truly is just a proxy for the remote.
Okay. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I saw you post in the forums about that. So that's what that is basically it's just one of these, but on your iPhone.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not tried to do field input with it, so I don't know if it gives you a keyboard to do that or not, but it basically just maps all the buttons on there to the screen.
Well, you remember back when I did the green throttle library module, whatever it is, so that you could use the green throttle for development?
Yes, that was wonderful.
I have slaved that, or I've taken that code and modified it, and basically what I can do now is export any event or button push or proxy touch from a device, be it an Apple or an Android device, to any other device that is running a Corona instance. So I'm entertaining the idea of creating like an app, basically, that its only purpose is to talk to Apple TV apps, and the Apple TV app will tell the app on your phone or your tablet, please present this interface, like 2 joysticks or buttons over here with these labels, and then you can interact with the game through your phone using an interface that is designed for that game specifically.
So would people have to? So would people have to then utilize? Would they have to know how you set up your controller then, or how?
No. Okay, so I'll give you for example. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to make a trivia game where multiple people could play on Apple TV. What I would do is they would get the Apple TV now, assuming that I could even get Apple to accept it as an application. Forget about that part of the whole thing. Let's just talk about the technology. Technology-wise, you'd have the app on your Apple TV, and you'd get a prompt, and it would tell you if you want to have a better experience with this, go download this app on your iPhone or on your Android device. And I know as soon as I say Android, they're going to be like, oh yeah, Apple's going to crap on you for that, or oh, bad word. But you know what I'm saying here. Anyways, once you have the app running or installed on your device, you run it, it will detect that there's a app running on your Apple TV. It'll connect, and the Apple TV app would then say, present this interface, put these buttons on your screen, and then you'd have a way of interacting with the game remotely, but through your phone. Now, this isn't something that just anybody could use on any game. Don't misunderstand me. This is for games that I would write for myself or for distributing out of my own store, so to speak, or not store, but I distribute the game and I distribute the controller, and they go with each other.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Is I was thinking this isn't some universal thing that you could just hook up with anything unless you created this as a plugin or you gave people code to make that possible.
Assuming that I can actually release a single app where this is even allowed, then I would probably release it as like a module or a plugin that people could buy and get the documentation on how to add it to their own apps, and then they could download the app. The point is you have one application on your phone which could present any number of different interfaces depending on what the app running on the Apple TV or the Android TV wanted. You can go so far as to send images too. So if the app running on your phone doesn't have the right art and you want to go the extra mile, you can send images over Wi-Fi to the app and then use those for the interface elements.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's one of my long-term projects. It's just kind of like puzzling out how to do it all. So.
Well, I haven't tried the app. What is the controller like? I mean, is it just generally very poor for games?
I'm not very impressed with it, but it's mostly at this point because I'm kind of like still confused about how it works. My expectations they don't match up. So if I hold it up here, on this side here is a touchpad, but it's also a button. The whole piece here is a button, so you can push it in. So, but if you slide up or down, you get left, right button events, left, right, up, down. But you also get an axis event, and this is in the article. The thing is just me. I've played a few of the free games, and it just feels unnatural sometimes, or like I have to do too much pressing. It feels too.
Yeah, I find the same problem with it. I find it to be difficult to balance the two, like when you have to click versus when you're having to do the movement.
Is there also a sensitivity setting inside the Apple TV
I'm not aware of a sensitivity setting. That doesn't mean it's not there, though.
Haven't seen one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. The button push on the joystick, D-pad part, or whatever you want to call it, this part, pushing this button, you got to really, I mean, it's a lot of pushing. I mean, it's not like it's like hurting your thumb, but it's not like a little tap. I haven't quite got that balance down yet. So, for example, I played Mr. Jump as a game where it's very, very easy to play on your iPhone or your iPad, and I tried to play it with this, and it was completely hopeless. I couldn't do it. I'm a failure at Mr. Jump when it comes to Apple TV.
And that's definitely where the controller, I think, comes in. It's the experience is just better.
Yeah, but this is the kind of thing, and not trying to toot anybody's horn like my own, but the app that I was just talking about, you'd still have the same feedback. You know, obviously there's no feedback. You'd have the same form factor in your hands, and I think that would be a better response than doing this. Although I have not yet done the experiment, so I'll talk more when I really do it.
Well, I think another thing that I've been trying to get across to people is the TV is a different platform than a mobile device.
Right.
And just taking your existing iPhone games or iPad games and thinking that, okay, this will port to TV is not realistic in a way, because this remote is your touch entry, and it's way different than touching a screen. It's not a joystick. So I think games that are designed from the scratch to work with the controller will work well. So for my game, I was going to give everybody the choice to either play with the D-pad using the axis information to steer the skier up and down the screen. Basically, it was an elf rescuing Santa Claus and dodging trees and yetis and abominable snowmans and stuff. But when I started using the accelerometer to tilt and steer, the game started playing a whole lot better than I could just by trying to move my thumb to steer the guy up and down.
I'm glad you said that. The accelerometer seems like the natural input for movement and steering for this device and form factor.
Yeah, I mean it was comfortable and it felt right.
Yeah.
So I just turned off the D-pad option completely and make them play with the accelerometer.
Yeah, I haven't actually. Yeah, I've only gotten so far as to install somebody else's app just to see if I can build. But I want to do experiments with the accelerometer and the D-pad and the axis, and to see what feels right for the different games I've got.
I dropped a link in the chat. There's a article talks about adjusting the settings, and it seems that fast, medium, and slow are your options.
I wonder how you do that.
That's scrolling speed rather than the button pressing, which is what Ed was sort of complaining about, I think.
Is that something? Okay, I'm running it right now. Yeah. Is it just me, or did you guys go through the whole? This is a side note, but when I first got this thing, I was so excited, and then I tried to plug it into my desktop monitor, and I had one of those DVI. What is it? I had DVI to VGA converter. That didn't work. Then I went and I got a DVI to. I got all these different form factors. What's the digital input for monitors?
HDMI.
HDMI. Yeah, I had a DVI to HDMI cable. Okay, that worked. I'm excited. So I just put yourself in my shoes. I just ran out to the cable store, drove all the way home, plugged it in. I'm like, yeah. Then I pulled the cable out of the box. I go, okay, jam. What? No, wrong cable. It's a USB-C cable. You guys, I don't know if you have the dev kits, but the commodity type, you got to go get a second cable.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't ship the USB-C with the regular ones.
Yeah, I know why they don't do it, but I just wish they would.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing. I got all excited. I got home. I plugged it in. I got a game all ready to try to load, and then realized that I didn't have the cable. I had to wait a couple days.
Of course, you know what my wife said? She says, "Did you read the directions?" Well, why are wives so practical? I don't get it.
What directions? Don't get the directions until afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that's my 2 swear words for the show. I'm, as we sit here, I'm experimenting to see if the green throttle and the Ouya controller can be sensed or detected by this device.
Oh, that would be cool. Because I have 2 green throttle controllers that do nothing.
Yeah, so I've got 2 green throttles and an Ouya controller. I'd be absolutely pleased as punch if they worked.
Sorry, they're not MFI controllers.
Oh.
Special controllers.
Yeah, because I got 4 of the green throttle controllers here, which I thought was a really nice controller, and the only thing it works with is Android.
I think that's one of the places that Apple fell down on this, possibly, is not making it usable with a controller from a PS4 or something, game console, the basic game console ones.
Yeah, full agreement there.
Does anybody know why they did that? There's some superior technical reason that they did that, or they just wanted to be contrarian?
The licensing fees, probably.
Oh, well, there's always that too.
I'm
Control
striving not
quality.
to say bad words right now.
No.
Okay, now I'm going to pull out my iPad keyboard and see if that works. The show gives me a chance to do things I wouldn't normally be doing. Experiment with my devices.
You guys get a chance. Doug Davies put out a Apple TV game called Buttermilk, and it's a game about a goat. So a bouncing baby goat. So if you get a chance, go check that out.
So much for that.
It's always fun to play with goats.
Play with goats.
That's what she said.
Oh gosh. Gosh.
Yarg.
Walked right into that one,
That
Charles.
didn't work.
I did walk right into
This is
that
a
one.
disappointing show for me, guys. Nothing I'm trying on the show works. Very sad now.
What you were trying to do? What? Hook a keyboard to it?
Oh, I have a keyboard for my Apple, no, for my iPad. You know, it's a Bluetooth device. I figured, I'll check to see if it hooks up.
It
Of course,
should.
I don't think there's any apps that need text input, or they don't accept like text fields, so it doesn't really matter.
I tell you, the thing that drives me insane is that when you do the text input through the remote, it doesn't wrap. You have to go all the way back to the other side of the screen, right? So if you're at A and you need Z,
It doesn't wrap?
it doesn't wrap. So you have to go all the way back. I'm like, God.
That was genius. Well, one good thing it does have going for it, though, is you can swipe and it's got like heft, so you can go past multiple
Yeah.
numbers and letters. So, but yeah, it's still kind of awkward. The whole typing with a single input mechanism is kind of awkward.
Yeah. It harkens the days of of typing everything out on your not even smartphone. What was it at the time? What did they call them at the time? Were they smartphones? Or whatever, you had the you had the keyboard on the
Like with Blackberries.
Well, no, that had a full keyboard. I'm talking about the ones where you get an ABC on one letter, on one digit, right? And you're like tick, tick, tick,
Yeah, exactly.
tick, tick, tick.
Feature phones, right? That's what they called this
Feature
one?
phones. That's what they were called. Feature phones. Yeah, the features that they drove you insane. I knew several people who tried to try to crack that market and build apps for feature phones and stuff like that. And one guy in particular, he built an app for Nokia phones, and submitted it to their app store, and was in review for months, and finally got a notification that he was approved, and by that time he was like, I'm done. I'm not. Are you kidding me? I can't.
That's the crazy thing. I mean, you call it an app store, but that's being awfully generous. I mean, there was really no room for self-distribution there, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
get a carrier to support you, basically.
Right. It was insane. So I think that was one of many of the reasons why that didn't take off. Feature phones.
I'm so sad now.
Well, hey, I don't know if you guys have been watching. I know Rob has. There's a bunch of new monetization plugins on the blog, or announcements about monetization plugins on the blog. Have you guys had a chance to play with any of that?
Oh no, I've been busy on my super secret project.
Yeah, actually, as you probably saw, Charles, earlier, I tweeted out that I got the Facebook one working and approved. It took a while, but to figure it out, part of it was that their interface, their portal, is very confusing. I think it should be way simpler than it is. There's so many tabs and so many things, you're not sure what you really need to do in there, and they give you no kind of feedback on if you're waiting in line to be reviewed or not, or what's, kind of what the status is. So I was constantly freaking out trying to figure out whether I needed to do something else or if it was going into review.
And you're talking about Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook side of things. As it turns out, I had some code issue on my side of the things that wasn't helping things out either. That was muddy in the waters, but got that figured out today, and a couple hours after I got it into the store and it went live, then I got a notice from Facebook saying that it was approved. So it's happening. So I think there can be definitely much better documentation, hopefully written to help people through the Facebook side of things.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a video on that because we wrote up as many steps as we could in documentation on our side and created a blog post and spent a good bit of time trying to work out the sample app. I don't know if you downloaded that or not, but work out the sample app in a way that it would pretty much prompt you to at all the key points and also put it comments and all that sort of stuff. So regardless of if you came in, say like if you came into the documentation, you'd kind of be able to get up and running, or if you downloaded the sample code, you'd be able to get up and running, and they're all kind of cross-linked to each other and stuff like that. But even with all that, I hear what you're saying, because it's a confusing process. Facebook's always sort of on their portal, they have a bunch of knobs that you have to tweak, and you don't always know why you're tweaking them.
Yeah, the main thing was that they said at one point that it's in testing mode, and that once you get so many ad views, that then they will put it into review, and that could take a couple days. But then they never tell you that once you get it a couple ad views and meet that criteria, they don't tell you you've met that criteria and that you're in that queue to get reviewed. So you kind of wonder, I wondered because it was going on 6 days since I had put it in, and I didn't know what was going on. So
describe the process that you took then, so we can all kind of follow along. So did you start with the blog post that we wrote, or the documentation? How did you first get into it?
Yeah, I did. I think the one that was it Rob that wrote it, which I thought was, whichever one was what it was about, I thought was great, and it seemed like pretty quickly I was able to get it up and running and actually see on the Facebook side of things that I was getting requests, but I wasn't getting any ads, which that was part of my problem with my code. So at that point, I wasn't sure what was going on, so I don't know. So then I found out earlier that you basically needed to have Facebook app installed, and that's how they kind of know that it's you, and then they'll start, I guess, giving you ads.
It's interesting you say that, because I went to a meetup last night where they were talking about mediation, and the guy that was presenting said that they're using Facebook Audience Network, and they're using it, directly from Facebook's SDK. So they've done all the legwork to code it up and integrate it into their app. And one of the things that he said is that if a user doesn't have the Facebook app on their device, then Facebook won't show ads.
Yeah,
I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it was really weird. But what was confusing to me is that it was showing me that I was getting requests, but I was getting no ad views.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah, because you're making API calls, right? You're calling into Facebook's system. They're just not sending an ad back to you.
Right, and so then I found out from Danny Glover today that I needed to install the Facebook app, which I didn't have because this is just a test device. I never use it for anything else.
Yeah.
So I didn't have Facebook installed on it. And so I installed it and logged in, and then sure enough, as soon as I launched the app and started doing the apps, playing it, then all of a sudden ad views started showing up.
I wonder how that's going to affect the performance of Facebook Audience Network. I mean, from a developer standpoint, you're like, well, if that person doesn't have Facebook on their device, they're not a Facebook user, right? Because I would argue that anybody who's a Facebook user probably has a Facebook mobile app on their device. Then what?
Right. That was a question I had that I put on the forums, and no one's kind of answered that because I don't know if it matters once they accept your application. Maybe they still serve you ads, but they just don't know anything about you, so maybe they're not as specific to you.
Yeah. And again, going back to the talk that I heard last night, the guy said that if the user doesn't have the app on their device, then Facebook just won't deliver an ad. Facebook, isn't going to spend admin inventory on somebody who's not a Facebook user.
That's interesting. So now what I did on mine, going into it, as a backup I have Bungle. So hopefully, but here's the problem: what I was experiencing was that it still does the API call, but it doesn't. But then it says you got a request, but nothing happens. So if it halts there, then my Bungle ads won't get triggered because I don't have any way of to knowing whether they have Facebook app on their device or not.
But are you getting a loaded event?
Yeah, everything. So I think everything would happen the way it needs to, because everything worked correct except I was getting requests, but I wasn't getting ads. So until I installed Facebook app.
See, I think again, based on the talk last night, I'm going off just what the guy was talking about, and more concepts than anything else. Because his talk was solely about mediation, right? He wasn't necessarily saying he used one provider or another. He was just introducing the concept of having a waterfall approach. So in his example, he was saying, let's say you have Facebook Audience Network, and then you have Bungle in your case, and then you have iAds, which we all know is going away. But let's just say, for example, that's your, and then maybe you have a house ads. So those are your four choices. And in his example, doing the mediation thing, you would make a call to a network, see if you got an ad back. If you didn't, you would roll to the next network, do a call, see if you got an ad back, that sort of thing. So it sounds like if Facebook's not going to show an ad to someone who doesn't have the app installed, then we may have to consider a way for the developer to be able to figure out if an ad is returned or not. That way they could, maybe you could fall over to something else.
Right, and I haven't done that specific test yet because what I'll do is uninstall Facebook app and then run the game and see what happens. That'll be a good test.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I don't think it'll be a matter of anything breaking. It's just a matter of not showing an ad, which is not premium. Right,
which is what I was trying to avoid with. That's why I put Bungle in there as a backup in case that would happen.
Right. And for years, did you just code it up that if for some reason you can't make a connection to Facebook, or if your ad doesn't,
if it failed, that
if you fail,
would go to Bungle.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have to return a failed to load the ad. So, and like I said, before I put the code in, before I put the Facebook app on, it kept saying it got requests, but then nothing would happen.
Gotcha.
So I'm not really sure
Does anybody else on the panel do? Since we're talking about mediation, does anybody else on the panel do mediation? Do you have more than one provider in an app, or do you just sort of put one in and ship it off and hope for the best?
I did mediation on early last year. I did those experimental asteroids games mashups, where they were asteroids, the game, and then the input mechanics for some other game like Flappy Bird or Don't Touch the Spikes.
Yeah.
And in those games, I experimented with ad mediation between AdMob, AdMob, and a couple of other ad providers. But since I didn't get a lot of downloads, I didn't really have any, couldn't compare results.
You weren't statistically accurate.
Yeah, statistically 0 is still 0. So, well, the point I wanted to make was it seemed the right thing to do, but it was a lot of work, and I found that during testing, just getting reliable switchovers, like one network would fail to give you an ad or whatever, was very difficult because sometimes ads would be delivered late, or they would be delivered the second time you asked, stuff like that. Yeah. And so I found myself like constantly switching between ad networks. So either I was doing it wrong, or I don't know.
And when you say you were experimenting, it sounds a little bit like maybe you had a back-end way of switching networks, or you're saying in the app programmatically you were switching?
Within the app I did it. I didn't go so far as to hook it up to external server where I could program it myself, or later. Although Mike and I talked about that, I think we talked about that on as a possibility when we were considering monetizing the game that we worked on.
Yeah, because that would be the next logical step, right? Is you could programmatically set up a waterfall, but then let's just say that you're on a network and that network has some big advertiser who's got a bunch of cash and they want to do a promotion, and all of a sudden you're like, oh well, wait a minute, I would rather network A go, or network B go before network A. So then you just sort of behind the scenes flip a flag and make the switch without having to resubmit.
That's totally doable. It makes me think, actually, Mike, I hope you don't mind my mentioning, but on our recent game, Picture Perfect Memory, we did have a Coronium backend, which is a known. Everybody knows that who's played the game. But in addition to basic Coronium usage, keeping track of users and games and stuff, we also added the ability to configure almost everything in the game, everything major in the game, from the Coronium backend. So
that's pretty smart.
It was a great idea. All we got to do is make $1 million or so, right, Mike?
That's right. Now we just got to get a million people to download it, and we'll be in business. But yeah, it was really cool how Ed put it all together and made it very easy to log into Chromium and change, some of the parameters, and we can change things around a little bit.
Did you try to make that in a way that you can apply it to your next project, or is that like a one-off experiment?
It was written in a way where we could steal the code for another project if we were willing to walk that road and use Coronium again. And I'm not saying that as if I'm not willing to use Coronium. My negative sounding whatever that I was going on there, the willingness part is just the willingness to make another multiplayer game.
All right.
One of the lessons I think we learned there is that multiplayer games are harder than we thought they were. Much harder.
Yeah, much harder.
I think I said it before on a previous show, but Mike and I got the prototype of that game done, single player. We got that done and smacked it out in a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe the most. Sure, it wasn't everything perfect as far as the art went or whatever, but it was pretty dang close. And then the rest of the time was just messing around trying to figure out how to make all of the multiplayer stuff work and all of the awards and stuff like that. So.
Well, if you took the multiplayer piece out of it, would you consider? I mean, would it change the nature of the project? I mean, it sounds like it would, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
like
that game really needed multiplayer.
Like when you say multiplayer, you're kind of like, well, maybe I don't know if we chose to do that again. But if you extracted that out of it, does your feeling about going that extra mile to put in back-end controls change?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have done it then. Wouldn't have needed it. We wouldn't have had a back-end server to start with.
Really?
Yeah.
So you
so
still
it applies to like controlling ad networks?
No. So I'm saying is there I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Is there value in having the ability to control some element of the game with a back-end system? Do you feel that has value?
I think in certain cases it would, certainly.
Yeah. Because again, kind of going back to the idea that when we create an app, we put it out there and we hope for the best, right? And then but it seems, I was having this conversation with somebody last night. It seems like it would make a lot of sense, though, that if an advertiser came along and they were running a promotion, and all of a sudden you were seeing high-paying video ads showing up in your game, and you're like, oh man, hey, I would really like people to be playing this game right now because this money is on the table. If you had the ability to tweak that, and you can do that, of course, with like push notifications or whatever, but if you had the ability to tweak that in some way that would encourage behavior, then you would be able to capitalize on that campaign, on that ad campaign.
I just wanted to say, in response to your question, you don't need a Chromium server. You don't need any kind of server at all, other than just a web host with the ability to download files
Just do
to
it with a
control
text
your
file.
app. If you can download a file from someplace, you can control your app remotely.
You talking about just a text file, or like a JSON file, which is still a text file?
If your app can reach out to your web server where you keep your website and securely download a file, I'm going to say securely because that's a good idea, but it's not a requirement, but I suggest it. Securely download a file, then you have a very simple mechanism for controlling features and flags and settings in your app. Your app can merely just reach out and go, hey, are there updates? Get the latest settings, apply them based on some code in your app, and you're done.
So you feel like I'm putting words in your mouth here, but maybe I ask the question this way. Do you feel like the multiplayer aspect of things is what drove the decision to have a server then?
Definitely.
Okay.
If we had only wanted to control configurations, we would have realized very shortly or very soon after considering it that we could do it the way I just mentioned.
Yeah, or if you wanted those configurations to be easily set by somebody with like a web interface or something, right?
Yeah.
Unless you created, I guess, even then, well, never mind. I was going to say, unless you created an interface where somebody did something and it created the text file for them. But either way, whether you're storing it in a database or storing it in a text file, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, databases are sexy, but not necessary to this equation at all.
Yeah. There's
the word sexy all the time.
There's an argument for keeping it lightweight, not making it any more complex than it has to be.
Must be sexy.
Today I saw that the plugin AppLovin is now available. So I was, just got done doing the Facebook one, and then saw that one and thought, well, would that have been better? Which one's better for what kind of apps? And of course, that's always the big question. Like, because Bungle has done pretty well for me over the years.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I thought on the way home, I was spacing out as I was coming home, and I was thinking, what people are going to, there was a point where people are like, hey, we need monetization options, we need plugins, we need whatever, and now they're just like coming out of the woodwork. So I think people are going to start asking that exact same question of, well, what's the difference, right? Because even when you start writing them up, you back me up here, Rob. When you start writing up the descriptions for these things, you're like, this one monetizes with ads. This one monetizes with video interstitials. This one monetizes with ads and video interstitials. You know, you're like, well, what was the difference?
Well, I was just thinking we probably should have some page that lists each of the ad providers, and then roughly what we expect the CPMs, eCPMs to be, what ad formats they provide, which ones are incentivized and which ones aren't. So that the users can have some, intelligence to pick which ones that they want.
You know what I've long considered making?
We will do that. Yes.
I've long considered making an application that does nothing but show ads. It has a front end that just lets you do. No, don't laugh. Don't laugh. Consider this. As a developer, have you not wondered what does the ad inventory look like for AdMob with these settings? What does the ad inventory look like for Bungle with these choices?
Okay, so you're not talking about an app that you would publish. You're talking about which one for yourself.
Yeah, I'm talking about an app I would publish. An app that I would publish with a front end said, choose the ad provider you want. Here's the settings that you can choose for that ad provider. Show me an ad.
Do you think that would? I mean, that wouldn't get past any store.
I don't think it would ever get past publishing. That's why I've never done it.
Yeah. Of course, I mean, unless you could make an argument that it's a utility.
I can find lots of ways where that would hurt me. Yeah, well, I've been struggling with that. I'm like, how can I convince them that this is a utility?
Yeah.
Or like for people who love to watch ads. Yes. Hey, man. They would just see it as a scam. No matter how you did it, though, they'd probably see it as a scam. But honestly, I kind of sometimes have wished that there was an app out there where I can go, show me what the ad inventory looks like for this. Don't tell me. I don't want to go to a website and it says, we're great and we have puppies falling out of our whatever. No, I want to know how good your ads are. For this metric, for this group, for people with these details, Don't tell me. I want to see it.
Yeah, puppies falling out of your whatever.
Speaking of puppies falling out of whatever, and I'm not making this up, Uber delivered puppies to my office today.
What?
So they were running this thing. So in the lead up to the Super Bowl, they've got all these different promotions one day, and I guess the Puppy Bowl kicked off today out in San Francisco. And Uber had a thing where there was Uber X, Uber Share, all the things, and then if you slide it all the way over to the right, it was Uber Puppy, and you can pay $30, and they would bring a few 11-week-old puppies to wherever you were to frolic around you. So my office, we all threw in and had puppies delivered. It was kind of awesome.
So if tomorrow you see a bunch of news articles about puppies missing from people's yards, you know what happened.
I was actually thinking the opposite. There's people get all excited about rabbits or chickens or whatever's right, and then after the excitement's over, then you've got these animals. And you're like, what do you do with them? So I'm assuming your coworkers took these puppies home.
No, they would stay for about 15-20 minutes and then hop into another Uber and go somewhere else where they're needed.
Oh, these are loaner puppies.
Yes, loaner
puppies. Get out. So for $30, I can bring you
to just today. It was like a very short window. But
I can bring you something that I will then take away from you and go take to someone else who gave me $30.
I want to be in that business right
there.
It's
the gig economy, man.
That's no maintenance, no nothing.
I tell you what.
When the puppy gets worn out, you take him back to the pound or wherever you got him.
Here we go. For all the lonely people in the world, and there's a Beatles lyric in there someplace.
Well, there's already. Don't even go there.
No. I know you can watch people online. I know you can watch people online eat and all this like that. But I'm talking about for $30, I will come to your location and sit and have lunch with you. And
but
then,
you gotta buy lunch.
No, well, I don't even have to eat anything. I'm just going to sit there with you while you have lunch, and then when that's done, I'm going to hop in the car and I'm going to go to the next person and sit with them while they have lunch. Think I'm crazy, and I will do it for $5 extra. I will bring a dog with me.
What's that service called?
Yeah, what we call it, it's you gotta something Lee, something with the LI at the end.
Something with an LI. Lonely.
Charles's companion service. coming out on the edge now.
Oh, living on the edge. I will bring a puppy with me if it will help.
Charles's escort service. Whoa! No escorting. I just show up and hang out with you.
You got Corona Geek. You got Corona Geek After Dark. You got Corona Geek House Call.
Hey man, I'm glad you're here, Jason, because I want to hit you up for some information. See how I did that pause? You're like, why do you want to hit me?
Yeah. I assume there's a valid reason.
Well, that was a pretty good.
Something on Slack today.
That was a well-positioned pause, by the way.
I don't get very many chances to pick on Jason. So, you said something on Slack today. Are you willing to talk about it on the show? Since you missed our earlier question. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a little demo app. It's not completely finished yet, but it's ready to show.
I want to ask you a question besides the one I already asked, and I'm hoping you'll say yes.
Okay.
Does it work on desktop?
It works, yes and no. On the Mac desktop, 100%. On the Windows desktop, it will if you don't mind collecting. So Stripe has got this really terrific checkout. It's like stripe.js is what they call, and it's this awesome little web service that collects the card information. And what's beautiful about it is, from a security standpoint, it never touches your app. So it loads up in a web view. They enter in their information. It goes straight to Stripe servers. It doesn't view you, and they return a token. And then you can place the charge against that token. So from a security standpoint, I think it's great. I think the interface looks beautiful, and it gives you a really nice way of like collecting card information. But it requires a web view. So on the Windows side, no, you won't be able to do that. But you could certainly build your own version of that. It's just potentially less secure in the sense that you are collecting card numbers. But then you can run a charge up instead of passing a token. So when you run a charge through their API, you can pass card numbers, you can pass bank account numbers, or you can pass a token which obfuscates all of that.
Yeah.
And is on their server.
I worked with them, but we used tokens last time I did it.
So yes, it will definitely work on desktop. If you're building a Mac app, it works natively, and I can show you guys how it looks in the simulator.
Well, it's a good thing that most users in Corona are Mac users. I mean, I'm stating that as
once we get web views, once we get web views in there, then.
Well, I saw your announcement today, and I just have to say I was super excited because I'm working on a secret project, which I won't tell you what it is.
You're looking to collect some dough?
I'll be looking to collect some dough, but I was like, how can I possibly monetize this?
Well,
what would be really great is if I could take credit cards. We can't do that yet. 2 minutes later, Jason's, yep, you're going to be able to do it.
Well, it's funny. It started because we used Stripe for my day job. We recently introduced a feature where people could, process transactions through our app. Mm-hmm. And so I did not build that. That was built in C# and Xamarin, but it used Stripe. So I set up an account. I started digging into the API. Their API is super well laid out, and it's easy to absorb, easy to work with. Authentication's super duper easy. There's no OAuth or any of that. You pass your one of 2 keys. So when you sign up for an account, they give you 4 keys. They give you test keys, which you can run through as much as you want, and use dummy numbers, and it won't actually charge it through. But what's nice about it is, in their dashboard, you still get a dashboard for your test charges, so you can go through the process of refunding, seeing how reports look, and not actually process anything. So they give you 2 test keys. One is a publishable one, which is something you could put in a website, and if a user were to see it, it's just a way of identifying your account. You can't actually process a charge using that. And then the other one is the private key. So so when you're placing an API call, it's just RESTful HTTP server calls, and you pass in a key, and that's all you need to do. So it's really fantastic, and it's been a lot of fun to develop for, because it really they took a lot of the hard work out. I mean, I'm realizing since working on a Twitter plugin last year and now working on this, I like the sort of challenge of building a nice, easy wrapper around something else. Of like, I like the fun of like creating a library and coming up with syntax that is consistent across multiple APIs and endpoints, and they had just a really terrific groundwork for that. So I actually have no personal use for this just yet, but when I was working with it at my day job, I was sort of like, well, that's something we could do. And I searched. There's one that I saw, Lua Stripe library, that I didn't really dig into it too much. It seems to work, but I didn't care for the way it was done. I don't think, it didn't make it super duper easy to use, and also like you used globals, so you'd call it in and it would create a whole bunch of global functions, and they didn't necessarily talk to one another, and so I tried to approach it the same way I did the Twitter library. But
my wife has a question for you.
Oh.
Earlier today, when I said how excited I was about this, she said, "Yeah, but what about PayPal?" So the question for you is why didn't you make a PayPal plugin?
Well, there was one. Dan,
no matter how much you do
a couple of years ago. But I'm a fan of Stripe. Honestly, I think there's a lot of their pricing structure is pretty much on par with PayPal, but it's a lot easier to absorb. It's like it's flat. It's like 2.9. They take 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. Yeah, and that's it. And I think if you process a crazy amount of money, then you get into a position where I think you can negotiate lower rates. But PayPal, it's on a sliding scale, and depending on this, and so it's I think particularly if you're doing a lot of money, PayPal can become a little more lucrative. But for the easy use and just it being, it's great. So you can set up an account really fast, really easy. First time you process a transaction, you get money in your bank account 7 days later. After that, it's every 2 days.
That's been changed to 2 days now.
Well, the first transaction is 7 days, and then after that, it's on 2 days rolling. And the dashboard's really easy to use. So I'm just a big fan.
All right, you're awesome, and I don't want to diminish the work you did, but I do want to point out one detail. More people. For my particular audience, which is going to be people who want to use Corona or want to learn about game development, more of those people will have PayPal accounts than Stripe accounts.
Well, you don't need a Stripe account to be a customer with Stripe, but that is the thing. There is a certain emotional security for the end user, right, who has a PayPal account and feels like I don't need to punch in my credit card numbers, right? I can just give my PayPal email address and check out that way. So yeah, I mean, there's that side of it. But Stripe accepts Bitcoin now, and I mean, there's a whole. It's really awesome.
I know having used it with Uber, I just like that it's all set up and it's ready to go, and I don't have to worry about anything. And I get in the car and I get out of the car. Right? I mean, I think that's the fluidity of the transaction is really the key. I have PayPal as well, but I don't want to. I wouldn't want to. I don't know. To me, it's a separate thing.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys want to see how it works?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it's awesome again, though, in advance of showing us how it works.
Let's see.
That was a made my day announcement.
So I've got a little demo app going for it here. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world. A lot of the output is coming in through the console still, so a lot of the feedback is done that. When I finally publish it and put the demo app up, I'll try to make it more like my Twitter demo, which you don't need to look at the console to see all of the output. But so let's load it up here. So I've got this little guy here. Right now I've got a single button, but I have a whole slew of APIs for this. So right now this button is to bring up the checkout. So that is as simple as a single line of code. So when you start it up, you just Stripe in it, you pass in your secret key, your publishable key. I'll probably have to change those now that they're going out on a YouTube feed. Those are my test keys, so it doesn't really matter, but still.
I feel your pain. Every time I do a demo, I'm like, oh, darn, did I just show that online?
And then so I've got, so once you've loaded up the plugin, you can call Stripe checkout. Really, all you need, that can be a single line of code. So you call Stripe checkout, you pass in an amount. Ideally, you'd be passing in an on success and on fail parameter, which points to a function that will either run on a successful one or on a failure, so you can catch either state. And that's consistent across all of the APIs. So let's see, we run this through, and so it loads up this really nice looking little guy. And again, this is a web view that's here. So it dims that, it pops that up. You punch in an email address, so email address, and then a card number. So for test accounts, you can use Stripe provides dummy numbers that, if you want to test, like if a charge gets declined, there's a dummy number for that. But all 4242 is a successful charge. It ignores these two areas, so you can put in whatever. You click pay, it goes, it gives you a little check mark there. That hops away, and then now it's going to call my onSuccess function. And that passes in a table, which is, if you look in the console here, I know it's probably really small, but it says transaction succeeded. A table was returned to the onSuccess listener with these key value pairs. So it gives you metadata if there was any, the source, the ID. Now, and this is a charge. This is not just the token. When I call Stripe checkout, the little JavaScript creates a token, and then I automatically go through and charge that token. So it's like sort of a convenience function in that sense. So let's see some of the other functions that we've got here. So you can run a new charge through with new charge. That's one that you could, so let's run that through. Let's change what the button does here. Let's say new charge. So this time, when I click the button, it's going to call stripe.newCharge. It's going to pass in some dummy card numbers. And we get a check mark. It's all good. Transaction succeeded, a table was returned, and it gives basically the same, it's the same type of object that gets returned the first time around. It's a charge object. All of this, the details of what these are available on Stripe's API docs, which are really brief, to the point, and well laid out. So I encourage that. But let's see what happens if I screw up the card number on that. So let's go up here and change new charge. We'll throw a rogue number in there and see what happens when we try and run that through. I get next. Again, this is what I'm doing with me handling it. The function, what you do with a fail state is up to you. But when it fails, an event table gets passed into the onFail listener with the key value pairs. And that's essentially, that is just passing the event table that gets returned by a network request. I don't do any handling of that. If there's a failure, I just pass that, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Try again, prompt the user, that's completely up to you. But it gives you all the details on why it failed. You can see the response here. It says your card number is incorrect. Yeah, you get a good bit of information there. I want to go back and look at the checkout, because I think what's really cool about their I've become a big fan of their little JavaScript checkout form. Because what's so nice about it is, load it up again, you can see by default, I put in, it's got my little icon up there, it says Schroeder Apps, it says Stripe Demo. But let's say I want to change that. Let's say I want to be Corona Geek, and I want my image to be the Corona Geek logo. You can just pass in the name and a link to an image, and that can be a local image or a web-hosted image. And now it's got that little guy there, and it says Corona Geek. You can change the description text down here. Let's say I want to support Bitcoin. I just pass in Bitcoin equals true in the data table of Stripe Checkout, and now all of a sudden I can pass in Bitcoin, and open wallet, scan, all that stuff is tied into iOS. It's kind of nice. Again, this is test, so it's not it's dummy transactions happening here. If I want to change what it says, where instead of just saying pay $10, I can change the panel label to say gimme, and now it says gimme. If I want to collect a billing address, I can just pass in billing address equals true. Ooh, hang on. Now what's going on here? Oh, I need to add a comma. That helps. And now it's going to collect billing address before it goes to payment info. If I want to collect billing and shipping, I can just say billing and shipping are both equal to true. And now it gives me... And what I love about this is you don't need to build this, right? So it's a really beautiful looking form to collect all of this information, and it's just handled for you.
And I think that's to me the big difference between Stripe and PayPal, right? I mean, PayPal is a consumer-facing, send money to each other sort of arrangement, whereas this is all about the developer and putting things into the app.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, I mean, if you look at the cost of the traditional, becoming a merchant, getting a merchant account, this gives you all that functionality, and it's like a fraction of the cost, and it's super easy. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So Jason, can you show us what that looks like on an iPad or some larger device, like with the web view?
Yeah, sure.
Scale, or how does it fill the screen?
It does scale automatically to the screen, so we'll show it in the simulator, but I'll also, if you want, I can plug in a real device and show you how it looks. So let me see here. Let me fire up quick.
So it's basically built specifically for the smaller device, and it doesn't like get giantly large on a big.
No, yeah, it's their little JavaScript app sort of handles all that for you, and it looks right, to my mind.
And Mike, what I hear there was maybe you were concerned that it would blow up into this big gigantic.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem when I've, played around with the web view is, you have to deal with that whole situation because, like, normally it would try to, some people want to fill up the whole screen with it. So I was wondering how they handled that. Did they handle it in a nice, elegant way? Did they just keep it the way it was? I would actually prefer it's probably easier for them just to do it exactly like they have it, where they don't have to change it. They've done it for the iPhone, basically, or a phone device, and they just keep it that same size, and it's big enough to use.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. I'm going to plug in, just so you can see it here, I'm plugging in my iPad so I can screen cap it.
So, are you screen sharing and then using QuickTime to show your camera?
Yeah, so
there
we go. There's the iPad. So this might slow things down a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, great. So, so that's it on my iPad. So that's how it looks, real size.
Nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, I mean, I don't need to walk through all the APIs. They'll be documented. Give me a week, but it'll be documented. But I covered not every single area of their API. I mean, there's some, you can. There are. Let me turn off screen sharing here. There are, APIs for checking your balance and for processing refunds and all of that. Their dashboard is just way better equipped to handle that. So I mean, if people really request it, I suppose I can add those in. But the areas that I focused on, let me remind myself here, were so let's see here. You can use the checkout form. You can run a new charge through manually. You can get a charge, so if you pass in a charge ID, it'll return a table with all the information on that. You can update a charge, so if you needed to, say, change the description, or they don't allow you to change everything about a charge, but they allow you to do that. Capture a charge, which is sort of by default, all charges that go through are automatically captured. But if you think about like when you check into a hotel, they'll pre-authorize your card and they won't actually charge you until you check out. That's what capturing is. So you can, when you process a charge, you can tell it, hey, don't capture it yet, and then you can capture it at a later time. So I support that. List charges, and that is, you want to see all the charges that have run through on your account, and it returns a table of those. And one thing I'm pretty pleased with myself that I handle, because I think it's intuitive, is the same way I did with when you return a list in the Twitter plugin. I added, in the table that gets returned, if there are more, I added a function called getMore to that table. So it's like list.getMore. So you can check in your onSuccess function, hey, does getMore exist? And if getMore exists, you can call it as a function, and it will automatically grab the next page of returned items. For customers, you can create a new customer. You can get information on a customer if you know their ID and you pass it in. You can update a customer. You can delete a customer. You can list all of your customers, and again, like listing transactions, that returns a paginated list, and if there are more, there's a get more function. And then you can create a new token. You can get data on an existing token. And that's all I've built into it right now, which I think covers most of the functionality that you want as an app developer, at least in my mind.
So let me ask this. I know you're a super nice guy, and you like making these plugins.
Oh, this is going to be free right up until they start allowing me to charge, and then I'll charge a small amount for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a way, are you going to try to...
I originally told myself I had the idea to work on this a while ago, and I said, yeah, I'll wait until they build the marketplace. And then I just got a bee in my bonnet about it this week, and it came together really fast in the last couple of days. And I said, you know what? Early adopters, you get it for free. When it's ready, I'll put it up, and it'll be free until it cannot be free. And I'll make it not be free. And in the meantime, I'm thinking about adding like a little undocumented function or barely documented function in the plugin that'll be like, stripe.thanks Jason. And it'll bring up a little checkout that allows you to throw a couple shekels my way. Something like that.
Yeah. A tip.
Yeah. Hang on, my wife is camera shy and she's walking past, so I'm turning off the camera here. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great idea. I love it. I love it. And when do you think that's going to be ready?
A week at tops. I mean, it's pretty much done. I need to finish up my demo app and polish that, and come up with documentation for it. But the document, so much of that is going to be pointing to the Stripe documentation, saying, "Hey, go here, look at them." And and then I've got to submit it to Corona Labs, and they're going to have to do their vetting of it. And last time there was a little bit of back and forth with that, but not much. And then it'll be up. So I would think by this time next week or end of next week tops, it should be up on the marketplace.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Michael will love to see that in his inbox.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to work on.
Cool. That is super. I'm kind of actually, my mind is reeling right now with ideas of ways to implement that, because you're basically talking about a direct connection between your customer and money.
Or people's wallets and your money.
well, yeah. I mean, let's face it. I mean, app store percentages and rev shares and blah blah blahs and all this other stuff. And in this instance, if you have a product or service, you have your price and you have your processing fees.
Yeah, this is really cool though, because it reduces the friction.
Right.
Of monetizing your app. If you can put it right in there, make it super simple, that's why I got so excited.
I will say I did think about, now they do allow you as Stripe, it would be technically possible for me to set myself up as a platform that you are going through, and for me to choose what percentage I take of any transaction that gets processed through the plugin. And
I'm not that excited
I
about
thought about it for a hot second, and then I was like, no, I really don't want to get involved in that. I'd much rather see people use it, and I think if I'm taking an extra point, I don't know if people will.
What's 1% between friends?
But no, I think I'll, because it's something that ultimately, if you're using it successfully, you're getting money, I'd like to charge a small couple of bucks, to use it.
Yeah, I'm with Charles on that. You should get paid.
Yeah. This stuff does not, make itself. If you want to go create a Stripe plugin for yourself, go for it. But
yeah.
that has a cost associated with it too. Yeah, your time, maintenance, upkeep, understanding.
And now I am going to re-roll my keys, my API.
Oh yeah,
keys.
there you go. Yeah, go ahead and change those.
So Jason, you're saying you wouldn't feel comfortable possibly taking a piece off the top and setting yourself up that way, but that's kind of what Corona is starting to set themselves up to do.
I would say so, but I would argue that there's a little more maintenance and upkeep on that. Once this thing is built, it's pretty much built. I mean, I don't begrudge them what they're doing. I don't. As much as if I am a very successful app developer who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars through ads, and I can start to tally up what a couple of percentage of that is, then that would frustrate me. It's a fee for a service, man. And my feeling with that is it's still an open platform. You can still get an enterprise license and roll your own if you're really so inclined.
Right. That's why I think that you shouldn't feel so bad about doing that. I mean, make it reasonable. Don't. If you don't make it unreasonable, then I don't see a problem with it really.
Yeah, I don't know. Not yet.
Come on, we'll give you time to warm up to the idea. That's really what it's all about, right? It's just warming up to the idea, because I think there's this, there's this perception that maybe, you feel like it's really easy for you to do. So you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, it didn't take me very long, and blah, blah. So you talk yourself into this idea that it's not worth it. But for somebody to just put their API key in and go in and start using something without having to have built any of that, right? Have to worry about the understanding of how the system works and how to create a plugin or how to do that stuff. I mean, it has immense value to me. So, I'm on the side of the business, the mindset that anything that takes time costs me money. I don't care if it's free. If it requires me to spend extra time, it's cost me something. But if it saves me time and it costs me money, it's a bargain.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm okay with a flat fee for it. And like I said, I think I would consider not creating it until there was a marketplace for that. And I thought, I'll do it now, and hopefully it'll gain some traction. Hopefully it'll get some notice. It'll become accepted as something that you use, and then as soon as I can start charging for it, I will start charging for it. And there's a certain. It's not all hippy dippy love and good feelings about sending stuff out there. This is a way to. People have found me. Strangers have found me on the web and hired me for things ranging from small projects to larger projects, and that happens because I have a website and because I'm out there, but it also happens because I'm on this Hangout, and because there are, there's just some natural synergy between, you put synergy, oh my god, but you start putting things out there, you start getting
it's like lead generation.
Well, it's entirely possible if you search for Corona and various Corona and Twitter, you're going to get a link to my page, right? I mean, so all that stuff, even if it's not directly benefiting my bottom line, one good freelance project that comes out of a stranger who found me because I put something out for free is probably more money than I'm going to make from trying to nickel and dime every time somebody, or not, right? Or it takes off and, $1 million gets processed over the course of a few years through my plugin, and shoot, I wish I had taken the 1% of that. But you can't live your life that way.
Well, no,
he says without the retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of, what was I was watching it last night. I was watching, it's a good Netflix documentary that talks about the Wrecking Crew. And the Wrecking Crew was this...
Oh, they wrote all those songs.
Yeah, it's this group of musicians who, they were all like studio musicians, and if you've heard Bonanza or Elvis or any number of artists during a certain period, you were listening to these musicians play music, and and one of the things that struck me was that a few of the artists said, or the musicians, artists, said they had been approached to go out on the road and to sort of move from being a studio musician into more of out front personality. Having their own brand, I guess you could say, in modern terms. And at the time, they were like, well, that kind of amounted to risk, and so they said, no. I'm too busy. I've got all these gigs. I'm just going to do this. And meanwhile, some of their fellow musicians kind of went down that different path, and they went on the road, and they became some of the names that became well-known household names, and you couldn't, there was no way at that time to know whether you were going to be, person A or person B, right? Because everybody was just trying to make their rent, and some people chose one path and some people chose the other, and so it was no way that at this point in time that person could look back and say, they may be able to tell themselves they missed an opportunity, but there was no way for them to, at that point, to know that there was an opportunity ahead of them. They were just working. So It was interesting. But yeah, go check that out if you're looking for something good to watch on Netflix.
I was a few minutes late to the call. Did I miss the CoronaCon talk? Have we had that yet?
No, we have not talked about that, and we probably should. So I've created a couple of forums. I created, well, first of all, this is kind of a chicken or an egg sort of thing. Okay, let's just be straight up with it. We have never done a CoronaCon, and there is a lot that goes into something like that, and you have to figure out a venue, you have to figure out the agenda, you have to figure out speakers, guest speakers. You have to figure out food, Wi-Fi at the location. There's all these details, all these things, and so at some point you're saying, well, if you said for a moment like venue, well, where do you have your event? Well, that depends on how many people you think are going to attend, and then how many speakers you're going to have, and how many sessions, and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to figure out one before you can know the other. So what I decided to do was create a couple of forms, put it out there, and say, okay, if you're interested in being a speaker, raise your hand. If you are, or if you have session suggestions, let us know. And so I've sent that out to the ambassadors in an email. I sent today. Well, actually today I included it in a newsletter, which will go out tomorrow. And then I'm going to start just sort of posting it. I need to do a blog post about it, and I'm going to post it on social media and stuff like that, and just try to reach as many people as possible to get them to A, tell us what sessions they would like to see, and then B, to let us know if they would like to be a speaker in one of these sessions. Because once we have that, then we can say, okay, we've got enough information that we can put up a website, and we can say we're going to have this, these sessions, and possibly these sessions, these speakers on around this time frame at this location, and then that would give people kind of an opportunity to look at it and say, oh yeah, but would definitely be interested in attending that, and then they can pre-register for the event, stuff like that. So that's kind of the backstory to the planning stage of things. So my question to the panel is, what would you guys want to see? What topics would you guys want to talk about at CoronaCon?
Don't put us on the spot or anything.
Well, Just
Yeah,
saying.
it's not like we didn't get an email several days ago to think about this.
Well, there's nothing that comes to mind. You don't have like something top of mind that just like jumps out at you. Like, the one thing I really want to talk about would be.
Well, the one thing I'm always want to know more about and to understand is the marketing side of things. How do we get our apps? I feel like we're on this path where the app creation part is getting, pretty good, and it's pretty easy compared to what it was 5-6 years ago. So now back then it was the hurdle was making the app. Now I feel like the hurdle is becoming less making the app, but getting it noticed and making money at it. So I kind of feel like I would love some more insight on what the right roads to go down to get your app out there and get it noticed.
You are reading my mind, because today I actually sent an email, or actually, I'm sorry, reached out to him on Facebook. I messaged Steve P. Young. I don't know if you heard of him. He's got a podcast, App Masters, and he does a lot of promotional stuff with people. He gets them in, mentioned in the media, and he helps them with their App Store SEO and all those different types of things. And so I actually asked him. I said, "Would you be willing to do an article like once a month on app promotion, app marketing?" Because I feel like exact same thing as you just said. I feel like people know how to make the app, and now we have all these monetization options. Kind of swimming in those. But it seems like the marketing piece is still kind of, there's a gap. People need to have some information on how to be promotional, because it seems like people don't think about that. Most of us don't think about that until it's in our face, and we're kind of like, oh yeah, I need to promote this thing.
But there's at least 3 topics there alone. App marketing. Getting your keywords and text right in the store for your ASO instead of SEO. Yeah, we can say ASO. And then, you could talk in there, what's it go to build a website so you can start building a branding presence for it.
Yeah, so we've got to have app creation, so there could be sessions on different aspects of app creation, right? We could talk about, Chris Byerly could come maybe and talk about Chromium, the cloud components and stuff like that.
Laura and I are having a conversation in the chat about obtaining licenses, so creating for licensed properties. Because particularly if you're into kids apps, I think that's a great way to leverage somebody else's existing IP. But there's legal issues and all that, and sometimes I think, from what I've heard, I don't have tons of direct experience with it, but it's not easy, but it may not be as challenging as you think it is. You just need to have some guidance on it,
Okay, yeah, exactly. I think that's great. And Eric Kincaid's been on the Hangout before, and he had some pretty opinionated things to say about licensed content and stuff like that. So it would be great to have somebody who's got a background in that, or recent experience in it, or whatever, just to sort of if not necessarily tell you step by step how to do it, at least kind of answer some of the questions around that topic.
Do you know Per Haglund? And I hope I'm not mispronouncing his names. He's from in Europe. I can't remember what country. But he like quit his job last year to go full time making kids apps, and he's either all Corona or primarily Corona, and he's doing licensed Hello Kitty apps now, which I know is a big get for him.
No, but I will definitely look him up.
And we talked about this earlier, but the other thing would be if there was talks about what are the differences between the different monetization, folks. What makes Facebook better, or what's their niche, or how can they be better than the other ones?
You mean like what kinds of apps match up better with what networks?
Right. That would be one of the talks and you would kind of learn that from how they're getting their information, and so what kind of apps or what kind of ads they're serving, and how they're determining that. Because Bungle kind of just seems like it's almost all game apps, and it's all it's all video. But I noticed just when I started serving up the Facebook stuff, I mean, almost every ad that I saw was different, and there was I saw like one game. So that already is a lot different.
You guys laughed earlier, but there is a real need for that app that I said I wanted to make.
Yeah, I think that would be a great app, and I don't necessarily know that it even needs to be published to the store. It could just be something that you load up on your device and you just you push the button.
You can't get real ads without real campaign IDs.
That's true.
Yeah, see, I know. I considered the whole thing. I don't want to go down that road again now. I was just making a joke. Okay. I did type in something in the sidebar, the group chat, but I'll say it here too. You guys have said, and I agree with you, that making games today is easier than ever before. It's 10 times easier than it was 5 years ago, 100 times. But it's still hard for a lot of people. And for me, sometimes I struggle with the question, what are other people getting stuck on? How can I help them? What is the thing that if I were to help people with that would get the most bang for the buck in helping the most people? And in that sense, if I were to go to a conference like this, I would love to see a Q&A session where people are asked, what do you get stuck on? What are the things that you find most difficult about game development?
Artwork.
I mean, the answers could be anything. They could be mechanics. They could be artistic question or answers. Marketing, as we've said. But just to reiterate, as easy as it's gotten, it's still hard for a lot of people. And I really want to understand why people quit or change engines, how they get stuck, and what we could do to help them. So
is that are you thinking about a panel in that sense?
Yeah, I think like a panel would be great, like a panel, and then just asking people this question, and then being able to have a little back and forth with the panel on suggestions, and sort of like what we do here, right? Except having a broader audience where they could say, "Hey, I have problems with this," and then we would say, "Oh yeah, well, have you considered?" or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and Rob, on artwork, are you talking about finding someone to work with who can do the artwork for you, or are you talking about sourcing pre-made assets? What are you counting as artwork?
Well, I think there's two thoughts there. I don't know if we could have some game artists that could go in and show some simple drawing techniques. Something that could be one potential session. Another one, because I would think there's a lot of programmers that probably struggle with artwork. And then the other one would be, what are the good free artwork sites out there? Who's doing good work? What are the different licensing terms that you run across? So can you actually use stuff from free clip art in your game, things like that. So you could have a kind of a legal business side of the artwork topic as well.
I think there could be a whole workshop or a series of workshops on potential legal issues. I think navigating the change from hobbyist to company, even if it's a small company, and the various and again, that's tricky, right? Because that ranges from state to state and country to country. But there's a lot of material there.
Okay, so legal issues, that's definitely a good topic. I mean, even again, maybe at these events, you know how it is. If you can get one piece of information, right, one nugget, you're like, okay, good. My time was worth the whole event. And then there's going to be a face-to-face element of meeting other Corona developers in person and that sort of thing. So a legal session doesn't have to be, you're not going to law school. You're just, you're going to be able to have some generalities, and then you're going to be able to maybe ask some specific questions, and then walk away with something. That'd be great.
I think a topic on just overall what is maybe best practice for the process of coming up with an idea through producing it and getting it out onto the app stores.
To use the posting process, is that what you're saying?
The whole process from coming up with the idea to creating it to...
So you're saying ask people, what does your whole pipeline look like?
Yeah.
From,
How do you think about it?
How do you start and how do you finish and everything in between?
Right. Yeah. What are the basic steps that you kind of end up going through, and helping people understand what all those are. And I'm sure it differs a little bit between different people. I have my own process that I kind of am comfortable with.
Yeah, you'd have to break. Yeah, you might. That might be broken up into blocks, right? Because one person, let's say somebody's like, well, I open up my graphic editing program. Well, for one person that might be GIMP, and for another person that might be Photoshop, and for another person that might be, you know, some other tool. But you're essentially opening up your graphics editing program and producing some sort of output.
Yeah, to me, it's not. You say that, you know, at this process you would use some tool like Photoshop or Illustrator or GIMP, but to me it's even bigger than that. It's the main steps that you go through and to try to figure out what's a good idea, how many people are doing it, you know, can I get artwork, do I have a great idea, but is the artwork going to be so costly that it makes it not doable?
So you're backing up all the way to the viability, and I think we've had this conversation before. Ed, I'm looking at you. This is the viability of the idea.
Right.
Does this make sense to do from a business standpoint?
Yeah, because when I do an app, I go through and I have this kind of a check points, and I first come up with an idea, then I kind of say, okay, I like this idea, then I look in the App Store and see how many other people are doing it, and is it still a good idea? If there's too many of them, then maybe it's less of a good idea. Then I look for artwork, and then if I can't find decent artwork that I can build off of so I can get there quickly and cheaply, then I stop.
I find it interesting what you said, that if there's too many, it might be a bad idea. Because Carter, whatever his name, I don't know what his...
Carter Thomas?
Carter Thomas, yeah. If you've read his stuff, he'll say, if a lot of people have done it, it's a good idea and you should do it. And that one of the bits of advice he gave is, if you see an app that you want to make and people have already made it, go read all their reviews, pay attention to their 2- and 3-star reviews, and whatever people have said they did wrong, go make that right in your app.
Right, and I think that's a good point. That's a great point to make, is that if somebody really still wants to do it, if you can come up with that, what you can make it better, or if you can tweak the idea to make it, you know, maybe better in some way, then there you can say, okay, I can move past this point and it's viable.
However, I just want to say, getting back to your original question, I do like the idea of a talk or a panel or something where people share their technique for examining viability of an idea.
Yeah.
I think user engagement is another one too, and you sort of touched on that in terms of feedback. Like I know that there's an app that I worked on a couple of years ago that still does really well, that has pretty good visibility in its admittedly somewhat niche category on the App Store, but it's a kids app, and we made the decision to solicit, and I think once, you know, in an appropriate way, but reviews, and say, hey, you know, you've been playing this a little bit, you've crossed a certain threshold in terms of score, would you consider giving us a review? And we get dozens, if not more, every month. They're usually overwhelmingly positive, and like they're a total shot in the arm. Every once in a while I get to go read these reviews and see somebody be like, my kid's doing better in Spanish class because of this, or like, I'm a 65-year-old guy, you know, recently retired guy who wanted to teach myself Spanish, and I'm using your kids app and it's helping me, and it's amazing. But I know that to some people, there are a lot of opinions on that, particularly with like kids apps, like, oh, should you be, you know, asking for reviews and all this? But you know, and that's more pigeonholed than I think the conversation could be. But I think user engagement is a big subject.
I'm making notes over here.
Well, you can always go back to the video.
Isn't that nice? I know it, but I like to make notes too. I like to make notes because it makes it stick in my head.
Yeah.
Does Google Hangouts let you view an archive of the chat? Does it save that?
No, it does. If it does, I don't know how to do it. And generally, what I've done in the past is either I open up all the links that are there, or before I hang up, I go and copy the whole column there and paste it into a document. But I've got again, I've been taking notes, so I have names. So I like that. Getting how to get positive reviews. Would user engagement, would that fall under encouraging behavior, behavioral, or that? I guess you could define it as whatever you want. Whoever the speakers are going to be, they'll define the topics as in the manner in which they want to deliver them information, right? So how when you read the conference descriptions are always kind of like you're hitting on a topic, but you're hitting on a topic from the perspective of the speaker, so they're putting a spin on it according to what they're going to deliver.
Can I just mention something also about the feedback and the ratings?
I like the L, the big L on the back on the door.
Thank you. My sister got it for me.
Yeah. Yes.
So I remember what room to go into. We were just talking about how to encourage ratings, and I have on all of my children's apps. After you load it up a certain number of times, it says, looks like you like this app. Do you want to leave feedback? But then in one of my other apps, it's just more general audience. I actually have a link right in there. It says feedback, and it says, do you like it or not? And if you do like it, it sends you to the rating, and hopefully I get a good rating. And if not, it actually prompts you to send me an email, and it says these are the ways that I think this app could improve. And so I actually get pretty often a lot of emails saying, oh, I want this feature, I want that feature. And it's been very helpful. It's a little daunting, like, oh my gosh, guys, I can't build everything. But, it's definitely great getting direct feedback from the people and knowing, exactly what they want.
We talked about this, I think, on Monday, but the developer of Eggs, which, congratulations to him, he won the big indie pitch in London. And one of the things that he does on his game, it's not out yet, or I would link it up in the show notes. But one of the things that he does in his game is he actually asks, I don't know if you can see that or not, in between each level when you complete it, he asks you, what did you think of the level? And I'm thinking, well, that's genius. What better way to find out what people think of something than to ask them, You
and I were talking Monday or whatever about this.
And you can't skip it.
I said this is that thing where I'm like banging my head against the wall going, how can I figure out if people thought this was good or bad or too easy or too hard?
Right.
And he just said, well, I could just ask them.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be in in the final game, but I wouldn't see why not. I mean, it seems like a great idea. So yeah, asking for feedback. I have seen that.
I love how it fits right in with his art style too. Really consistent.
Yeah, it never feels like an intrusion. You're just kind of like, it's almost like part of the game. You're like, what did you think of the level? That was easy. Okay, and there's nothing to it. I mean, and the other, this is kind of I don't know if now we're kind of rabbit trailing, but the other thing that he does in the game that I thought was really interesting, and I took mental note of, was that he has experience points. So whenever you finish a level, you get experience points. And then those experience points, if you go and you can customize your character. So you can spend your experience points making the character stronger or jump higher or be stickier to I think that's what resistance does. Stickier to things. And because you could have these experience points, you can either spend them on one character, or you can start a whole new character, which I thought was great because now you're sort of more invested in the game. You know, it's not just a definitive endpoint and beginning and end. You're kind of like, well, I have experience points that I needed to spend, and I've taken care of this character and created it and customized it, and it's mine. And you know, you're just more emotionally invested in the concept.
I love the art for that game. I haven't played it yet, but I've seen the videos and stuff. Well, just the little menu you were on, it really reminded me of Patapon. Did you guys ever play Patapon? It was a PSP game back in the day. That was a freaking great game.
Yeah, well, I like that everything is rounded. Everything's organic feeling, you know, and you're right. All the art style is consistent, and it just feels good. So I think there's a reason that he won. You know, the big indie pitch.
I first saw it because you had a screenshot on your Twitter, and I'm like, "Oh, that looks cool." And then there was like a video. It was a video link with a screenshot. I'm like, "Oh, awesome!" You did a great job of making it just viscerally having good like squishiness and bouncing and all that kind of sticking and.
Yeah,
well, lucky enough to get to try the game, but
yeah. And speaking of marketing, I mean, if you go to his website, he's got a whole developer blog that you can kind of follow along with his journey. He's journaling the.
Is that word too hard for you to say?
Yeah, it was way too hard for me to say. Chronoling. He's journaling the experience, and he talks about how he prototyped it and what it looked like. And the video, one of the videos, I don't know if I shared it or not, was just a video of the early prototype when it was just not nearly as polished, and he was just getting the game mechanics down. So, so my point there, not to rabbit trail too far, is just the idea that from a marketing standpoint, he's building an audience as he goes. And if you go to the press page on his website, did I put it? Yeah, I put it in the chat. If you go to the press page on his website, he makes it extremely easy for press by providing screenshots and all the stuff that they need in order to talk about him. I've been to sites where even developer sites where they don't have Twitter, they don't have Facebook, they don't have I'm like, well, I can't talk about you. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not shareable. There's not a video that I can copy paste. There's not a Twitter account that I can retweet. There's not a there's nothing. I mean, I can okay, great game. Yeah, you. I can't. There's no way to share you. I can share the link. I can share. Hey, go to this website. But
Well, and he's done a great job in the forums of, putting in progress and stuff. So,
Laura, are you saying brutal because of what I just said? She's laughing.
You know what I wonder is where else is he doing, if he is in fact doing it, where else is he doing outreach to other communities and trying to get in front of people? So besides having his own site and besides talking in the Corona forums, I wonder if he's talking elsewhere.
He's a total pool shark, man. His first post in the forums made it seem like, oh, I'm just this little guy. I'm in my first game. I just thought I'd try it. And then you look at it and you're like, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. This is a tight game.
He's a shark pretending to be a minnow.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's pretending. I think he's just humble. Because like in his first post, it just sounded like so many posts from people who are like, oh, it's my first time making a game, I hope it works out okay. And you can just tell it's like this, and he's doing everything right. He's gonna be on the radar of the App Store. He's doing everything right to get a feature, and good on him. You know what I mean?
Well, he certainly has talent. He certainly has a background in something because when you look at the trailer, the video trailer, and all the different animations and stuff like that he does, he's either working with someone, which I don't think he is because he talks about being a lone wolf, or he just has exceptional talent in this area because it has that cartoon feel to it, right? There's certain concepts from an animation standpoint that are being followed that would imply that he has some skill and experience in that area. So while this might be his first game, he certainly has experience in other areas that help him out. So
he got production skills, eh?
Production skills, yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Production skills. So I think that helps a lot. It's just like Digiten when they put out Dig Away. That was another game that felt like playing a cartoon. Or City Birds from Chunky Apps. It was another game that felt like playing a cartoon. There were elements to it that. I don't know all the animation terms, but when you see them, you're like, okay. Things that have lead up and things that have bounce to them and things that have inertia and momentum. It just feels like an animated cartoon. So. All right. Well, that's a good CoronaCon talk. Thanks for breaking it up, Jason. Well, there'll be more on that. We need to have more of these type of discussions because, we want it to be a community experience, right? We want the community to say what it is that they want to see at the thing, and then we want the speakers to be people from the community or people who are experts in the field. I don't know. Maybe we have some lawyers who are making apps, but if we don't, we'll have to reach out and find a lawyer who is an expert in this particular area of study. Because I happen to know a lawyer who does intellectual property law, but I don't think that he deals in the app space, right? So he could come and talk in generalities, but I'm sure that the audience is going to want more concrete examples. So we'll have to find that. I
just want to put in a vote for. There's a video game lawyer who actually comes around and he's done sessions at IndieCade and also I believe the Boston Festival of Indie Games, and he specializes pretty much in the legal issues surrounding small studios and video games, trademarking, copywriting, all that kinds of stuff. So he's based out in Brooklyn. I don't know if he travels or whatnot, but he would be a good person to look into.
Is that Chris Reed? Is that the one you linked to?
Yeah, I sent his information in the chat.
Okay, I've got it. I've got that tab here. I'll look him up.
Excellent. Yeah, and I've seen him talk. He's very great. He's very friendly and informative and everything.
Okay, good. And that's what I think. That's what we want is just somebody who can talk on the topic, is approachable.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff. Because I like the sessions. I like the events that you can go to and the person's up on the stage and they talk and all that kind of stuff. But then after the thing is over, they're standing out in the hall and you can continue the conversation. So.
Oh, totally. I've harassed him to the point where it's like, all right, he needs to go now.
Yeah. I have been to sessions. I have been to events though where the speaker comes, they get up on the stage, they talk about things, and then as soon as it's over, they leave, and I'm like, okay, thanks.
It's not as fun.
It's not as fun. It's not as much fun. I mean, if they have to go, like their spouse is pregnant or something, and or there's an emergency, or they have another appointment, I guess. But come, stay, hang out a while.
Offer more free beer.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. All right, well, let's wrap it up then. I guess we're kind of close to the hour, and no, I don't think we need to start another topic. So, a little bit of housekeeping. I think Rob had asked me this. How do you guys feel about the first Tuesday of the month for these hangouts, for these After Dark hangouts? Is that good?
It's good, but my wife would say do it on Wednesday.
Yeah? You like Wednesday?
Well, she likes it because then I can help her. I can be a roadie.
Oh, okay, because you wrote roadies on Tuesday.
Do you have a regular Tuesday night gig?
Yeah, I help carry all the equipment. But,
well, we seem to have a full panel here on a Wednesday night. Do we want to shoot for first Wednesday night of every month?
I would vote for that.
because I'm fine with that. It does. It's
That's fine with me.
I could probably make it happen.
okay. Well, well then let's make it so. So first Wednesday of every month, we'll do this. And the only reason that we didn't, I was gonna, so historically speaking, I was gonna do it the first Tuesday of every month, but we sponsored an event here in Austin last night, and I couldn't be in two places at one time, so we did it tonight. But so we'll set it up for the first Wednesday of every month, and if is some kind of conflict, then we'll just deal with it. But for right now, that's the way we'll do it. And then that should give us plenty of stuff to talk about at each After Dark Hangout, and not be burned out, trying to make it week to week. Cool.
Yeah,
all right,
that's
guys.
a good idea, because I think we did get kind of burned out with like trying to fill in too much information.
Yeah.
The other show, and it's like,
yeah.
Talk, but I can't talk that much.
Yeah, and I don't know you guys. I enjoy hanging out with you guys, and I want it to be fun. Right? I don't want it to be like, oh, it's Tuesday, or or in this case, it's Wednesday again. It's Wednesday again.
I got to come up with something to talk about. I got to be entertaining and charming. Oh no.
I didn't know. Is that a requirement? I didn't know that. All right, guys. You have a great week, and
yes,
and we'll chat soon.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.